Hello artists. Hey, we're going to finish that monochromatic painting today. So we're going to put in our tree, we're going to put in a fence, and we will finish our composition. So we're going to start with, again, getting the color that you're using, just that one color, wet. Dip paintbrush in the water and activate that pigment. And we're going to start with the fence. So what you want to do is on your paper decide, where you would like your fence. It's going to come from the midground and then maybe into the foreground, or you could just keep it all in the midground. I think I might do mine just right along here and kind of echo the shape of this hill that I have going on here. So if you would like, it might be easier to draw lightly with a pencil the line that you are going to put your fence at. I'm going to use a flat brush for this, but you could use the round one too. It's actually totally up to you. I just want a little bit of paint because I'm going to start in the back. So remember, mid-ground, this fence will be a little bit lighter. So just a small little post. You want to make sure that your posts are not all going straight up and down, because if they're all perfectly straight up and down, it won't look very realistic and natural. And then as those posts get closer to me, they'll get a little bit wider, a little bit bigger, and a little bit darker in value as they get closer. So I just kind of laid the design in. Now I can get a little bit more pigment and darken one edge, but not too much because it's still kind of wet. So I'm going to let that dry. Now I'm going to work on my tree. So the tree is in the foreground. We want it to come all the way to the bottom of the paper and go all the way off the top of the paper because we want it to look like it is right there in front. So now I'm going to use my larger brush, and again with my tree, the trunk at the bottom is going to be wider than at the top. So at the top, I'll use just the edge of the brush and then pull it down and make it a little thicker down here. And then we want to add some branches. So I'm using just, instead of laying the brush flat, kind of using the side. It's like I'm drawing with the paintbrush. Put some branches on there. And you're just lightly touching the brush to the paper. Remember, your paintbrush is a ballerina. See how just the tip of my paintbrush is touching the paper. I'm not smashing that paintbrush down onto the paper. So if you just hold it lightly and the tip touches, you're going to get a nice thin edge, even though it's a thicker paintbrush. A little bit more paint. So I'm just putting some branches in. Notice how I have some white still showing in my tree. I want this paint to dry. Then I'll do another layer over it. And where there's paint, that will be darker, and then this will be a lighter value. So you have to work slowly in order to build up those values. So we want our values to be different. And then some of your branches can overlap. Have some branches overlapping one another, crossing over your tree. And you want your branches also to be organically shaped. They have bumps in them. They're not all straight. So as you're doing that, twist your paintbrush so that you get some fun branch shapes. There we go. And then just finish up, artists, by adding darker values, letting this dry. Let's see, my fence post is pretty dry. So now I can put in some darker values. We talked about where the sun is coming from. I'm going to have my sun over here on this side. So there's going to be a cast shadow coming off my fence posts. So that means the right side of my fence post will be a little bit darker. So I'm going to just put a little bit more pigment on that side of the fence posts to make it look like there is a shadow. That'll help my fence posts to also look three-dimensional because they have a light side and a dark side. And then I'm going to put a little wire, so I might just draw a thin line like this to make it look like maybe there's another fence post or some barbed wire between those guys. And then I'm going to do a cast shadow. So to do my shadow, I'm just going to start at the base of the fence post and just kind of pull some paint down across those little hills like that. So there are my shadows. And then again, I'm going to keep laying in the value of my tree. You want your tree to be darker value than the trees behind. So these trees back here should be a lighter value than the tree in the foreground, because remember, as colors go away from us, as objects go away from us, they get lighter in value. So keep laying the pigment on top until your tree is a nice dark value that stands out away from the midground or the background trees. All right, well, have fun, artists, finishing your painting.